Hinduism is an ocean filled with heroic stories where often great sacrifices are made to bring victory to Dharma. This week, we bring you 8 of the biggest stories on human sacrifices made to enable a greater purpose. This is the first episode of our sacrifice series. To watch the other stories in the series, click on the link in the description below. The story begins when a boy named Vishwaroop is born to Tvashtra, the craftsman who created many weapons for the gods. Although Vishwaroop's father served the Devas, his mother belonged to the Rakshasa clan. Vishwaroop grew up to be a bright man with thorough knowledge in all Vedas and Shastras. He was well versed in performing all kinds of yagyas and religious ceremonies. With his immense knowledge and power in the spiritual ceremonies, he was approached by the Devas to be their guru. As a guru, he was responsible to advise the Devas when in need and perform various religious ceremonies and offerings that would increase the power of the Devas. Although he was the guru of the Devas, he was also affectionate towards the Asuras who belonged to his maternal side, and often while performing the yagyas, he desired to share those blessings with the Asuras too. Eventually, Vishwaroop secretly started muttering the names of the demons along with the Devas while offerings were being made to gods. This kept the Asuras satisfied as they were attaining greater powers. But this did not remain a secret for too long. The Devas became suspicious of Vishwaroop's intentions, and when the truth was out, they reported of this betrayal to Lord Indra, the king of the Devas. Indra was infuriated at Vishwaroop's actions, and as a punishment, he immediately beheaded Vishwarupa. The death of his son at the hands of Indra put Tvashtra into deep grief. He began to entertain thoughts of taking revenge on Indra. He performed huge penance to attain a son who would not be killed by any weapon and can kill Indra. He was granted the boon, and soon a son was born to him. Tvashtra named him Vritra. Vritra was brought up with the stories of his elder brother who was killed by Indra, and that left a deep impact on him. He grew up to be hateful, cruel, but also immensely strong with great knowledge of the weapons. By the time he grew out of his boyhood, he had been thoroughly trained in the use of all types of weapons. No one on earth, not even the mightiest weapon in the world, could harm him. He was welcomed by the Asuras to join them and defeat the Devas. Vritra was declared the leader of the Asuras, and under him they plotted plans to fight the Devas. At last, a war between the Devas and the Asuras broke out. Under the command of Vritra, the Asuras were overpowering the Devas. When the Devas realized they could not win the battle and that their lives were in danger, they escaped and hid themselves. The Devas were now thrown out of their abode, Svargaloka, also known as the heaven, as Asuras had occupied it. Vritra also stole all the water in the world for his own use and for that of his Asura army. He did this so that all the other living beings would die of thirst and hunger, leaving no human or god alive to challenge his place in the heaven. Indra and other Devas were in despair, and losing all hopes on recovering their kingdom, they went to Lord Brahma to seek aid. Brahma assured that there was no weapon in the world that could defeat Vritra. He redirected the Devas to Lord Vishnu for help. The Devas reached Lord Vishnu with plea to help them. Indra explains to Vishnu that Vritra was so cruel that he could put all the demons of the past to shame. Lord Vishnu, bearing the responsibility of protecting the world, consoled Indra and asked them to go back to the battlefield and fight Vritrasura. But before, they would have to meet Dadhichi. Sage Dadhichi was the master of the Vedic arts, also known as Brahma Vidya, that could enable one to attain immortality. He was a great devotee of Lord Shiva. Sage Dadhichi is said to have been the first one to leave from King Daksha's yagya, the father of goddess Sati, when he realized that Shiva had not been invited. He had his hermitage built on the banks of the river Saraswati and led a pious life of penance and spirituality. Vishnu revealed to Indra that the mantras the sage had mastered by chanting millions of times had made his body so powerful that only weapons made from his bones could kill Vritra. To fulfill the purpose of the Devas, sage Dadhichi will have to sacrifice his life in the interest of the greater good. Vishnu advises the Devas to go to the sage with humility and with due honor explain him their distress. The Devas felt motivated by the word of Lord Vishnu. They came to the bank of river Saraswati and reached the hermitage of sage Dadhichi. Indra with his followers entered the ashram of Dadhichi and with all humility explained to him their situation. When asked by the sage that how could he help, Indra revealed what Lord Vishnu had mentioned, that only Dadhichi's backbone would serve as a weapon that could kill Vritra. Sage Dadhichi thereupon quietly accepted the request of Indra. By his powers of yoga, he, in no time or hesitation, gave up his life so that his backbone might be utilized for making the mighty weapon. After his death, all the Devas collected his bones and took it to Vishwakarma. They made a weapon named Vajra, often known as Indra's Vajra. The supreme sacrifice of sage Dadhichi made Indra's Vajra invincible. With the help of Vajra, Indra killed Vritrasura, allowing Indra to reclaim his place as the king of Devaloka and releasing the water back for all the living beings. Such was the courage and valor of the great sage Dadhichi, who gave up his life in no time or thought for a cause that was greater than his own. It is said that his immense devotion for Lord Shiva and his selfless sacrifice for the Devas helped sage Dadhichi attain moksha and be one with the eternal God.